There is a curious pattern that seems to repeat itself throughout human history. Whenever we begin learning something new, our first instinct is almost always the same. We add. A young musician fills every silence with notes. A writer reaches for bigger words and longer sentences. A painter covers every inch of the canvas. A chef adds one more spice, convinced it will make the dish unforgettable. We believe that mastery is found by adding more. Yet something remarkable happens as experience grows. The musician begins removing notes until only the melody remains. The writer deletes entire paragraphs. The chef discovers that 3 perfect ingredients are more memorable than 20 ordinary ones. The artist leaves parts of the canvas untouched, allowing emptiness to become part of the work itself. Mastery, it seems, is rarely about addition. It is almost always about subtraction. Photography follows exactly the same journey. When we first pick up a camera, we try to capture everything. Every mountain, every tree, every cloud, every person walking through the street. We become collectors of information, believing that if we can fit enough into the frame, the photograph will somehow become more important. But the camera has never rewarded abundance. It rewards clarity. Perhaps nowhere is this idea better understood than in Japanese culture. There is a concept known simply as ma. It is often translated as empty space, but that translation barely scratches the surface. Ma is the meaningful pause between things. It is the silence that gives music its rhythm, the empty hallway that makes a temple feel peaceful. The space between 2 people before they embrace. It is not emptiness for the sake of emptiness. It is space filled with purpose. Without silence, music becomes noise. Without pauses, conversation becomes exhausting. Without empty space, architecture becomes oppressive. And without simplicity, photographs become confusing. Our brains are remarkable machines, but they have limits. Every second, they are flooded with colors, shapes, movement, and light. Long before you consciously recognize a photograph, your brain has already begun making thousands of tiny decisions about what deserves your attention. When everything is important, nothing is. Imagine standing in a crowded city square. Bright billboards compete with flashing traffic lights. Cars move in every direction. Hundreds of faces pass by. Your eyes dart from one place to another, searching for something meaningful. Now imagine leaving that city and standing alone on an empty beach at sunrise. There is only the horizon, one person walking along the shoreline, the sound of waves. Suddenly, your mind becomes quiet. Nothing changed about your ability to see, only the amount you were being asked to process. Photography asks exactly the same question of every viewer. What deserves attention? The greatest photographers have always understood that their job isn't to show us everything. Their job is to decide what we should care about. Henri Cartier-Bresson was famous for waiting, not because he lacked confidence, but because he understood that distractions eventually leave. A person walks out of the frame, a car drives away, a shadow moves. The scene slowly simplifies until only the story remains. The decisive moment wasn't simply about timing. It was often about patience, the patience to let complexity disappear. The same philosophy appears throughout the history of art. Look at Leonardo da Vinci's Mona Lisa. The painting isn't surrounded by elaborate decoration competing for attention. Your eyes are gently guided toward a single face, a single expression, and a single unanswered question. Centuries later, millions of people still stand in front of that painting, not because it overwhelms them, but because it invites them to stay. The strongest photographs do exactly the same thing. They don't shout, they whisper. And somehow, whispers often stay with us longer than screams. This is one of the great paradoxes of photography. Simplicity is often mistaken for a lack of effort, when in reality it usually requires far more thought. It is easy to include everything. It is much harder to decide what doesn't belong. Every step to the left, every change of angle, every decision to crouch, wait, zoom, or crop is really a question of editing. The photographer is quietly asking, if I remove this, does the story become stronger? The answer is surprising more often than not. It usually does. Think about the photographs you remember most. Chances are they are built around a single idea. A lone tree standing against a storm. A child looking through a rain-covered window. A climber silhouetted against the sky. One face illuminated by a shaft of light. These images endure because they never force us to search for the story. They reveal it with extraordinary clarity. Simplicity does not mean photographing empty places. A busy market can be simple if every person contributes to the same story. A crowded tennis stadium can be simple if every eye leads to the player serving for the championship. Simplicity is not measured by the number of objects inside the frame. It is measured by how clearly the photograph communicates what matters. The next time you raise your camera, resist the temptation to ask what else you can include. Ask a different question. What can I remove? Move closer. Change your angle. Wait another 30 seconds. Allow the crowd to pass. Let the background become quieter. Watch as the photograph slowly begins to breathe. You may discover that nothing new entered the frame at all. Only distractions left it. Today's challenge is beautifully simple. Find one subject and photograph it 5 times. Each photograph should contain less than the one before it. Remove distractions, simplify the background, eliminate unnecessary colors. Keep asking yourself the same question. Does this help tell the story? If it doesn't, let it go. When you compare the images later, don't choose the photograph with the most detail. Choose the one that says the most with the least, because photography has never been about filling a frame. It has always been about filling a mind. And sometimes, the clearest story is found in the quietest photograph, the Lux Lucet moment. The amateur adds until there is nothing left to include. The master removes until there is nothing left to take away.